Welcome back to another episode of How It Works. Hello, my name is Ken Baker from GreenPro Solutions. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the electrical system. Now, this particular unit is a 5500 series Isuzu Chevy. It's a mixed line for this year, so you may not have this particular unit, but the box and concept is pretty much the same, and the electrical system for this type of vehicle is typically the same. So if you have a truck like this from GreenPro Solutions, then you'll be familiar with this electrical panel box. Now this box is unique for GreenPro Solutions. Basically what we do, we have everything's grounded to this box from the battery. None of these lights, reels, motors, all the functional devices are not mounted to the chassis. For obvious reasons, for moisture, vibration, wear and tear. We bring everything back to this panel so it's maintenance. It's easier to maintain if something doesn't work. We don't have to chase down where the ground is to the chassis. So that's one of the very unique aspects of our electrical system. Very easy to troubleshoot. When you call me, I can help diagnose it much quicker using some simple electronic devices when you're in the field. So this electrical is an aluminum plate. We have a feature on here with a timer clock type device. Now what this does, it's a meter box. It tells, for instance, right now it's telling you the current draw of the lights that are on are 2.61. If I shut that off, you see it goes 0. Turn it back on. That's the amps that is drawing off the current battery. Up in the left-hand corner here, I'm going to take the sticker off. You can see a little bit better. The voltage is 12.59 volts. That's the voltage of the auxiliary battery for the back of this truck. So you always know what that is. Power and energy you don't need to worry about. That helps me determine when I do troubleshooting with you in the field when something doesn't work. So most of this you really don't need to know, maybe except the battery for when it's sitting for any period of time and things. You'll need to know what that voltage is. Now this box has your lights, as you see. It has a transfer pump, which we'll talk about in another episode. And then you have your breakers for your light. You have a circuit breaker for your pump, and you have and your lights and your transfer pump. And you have your breaker here for your engines, your 2 engines, and you have one for the 2 reels that are up here. And that was one of the other episodes I did talk about the hose reels, and there's a breaker system here. And they're also on the reels themselves. So you have a redundant breaker system for your reels. And so if something doesn't work with them, it's either these 2, one of these 2 will be blown, or the ones on the reels themselves. You also notice there's a fuel pump. With this particular unit, there's a fuel pump in the back with a gas tank. So when you start the engines, you'll turn on the fuel pump for that, and that's a breaker for that as well. And you can see also there's actually spaces here that gives you the ability to upgrade to other devices if you need to. As far as any servicing is needed on this electrical panel, you take off these bolts here, this panel comes off. Everything in the back of these panels, the switch and these breakers, are soldered directly to the terminals, and there's shrink tube put over them. So we did really anticipate the vibration, water, moisture of those, so it has a very hardened connection for long term. So you really wouldn't have to ever get into here unless one of these devices break or fail, and they're very easy to replace. We can send them to you, and I can talk you through it. Now, the truck itself does have a power line that goes from the auxiliary battery, which is on top of this reel far to the left. Has a separate battery back here, but that battery is connected to the truck battery with a breaker system. So the alternator will charge, of course, the truck's battery, but the secondary battery back here as well. It's important to watch this number and have your truck running, especially if there's short bursts of jobs from one job to the next. You're running 15 jobs a day. and you have stopping for 10-15 minutes at a time. You need to have your truck running, because otherwise pulling out your reel takes a lot of amp draw from your battery, and your engine takes a lot of current to start it, and you end up what they call a hard charge. You end up draining the hard charge more so than what the alternator is charging, and you may end up not being able to start your engine or pull your reel in. So it's important to monitor this when you're down here. If you see it go anywhere between 11.5 volts, make sure you turn your truck back on, bring that back up, and you should be fine. Now there is a breaker there every so often that you want to check that breaker on the truck battery. It's a gray little box, the 50 amp. And it's just one of those maintenance things you want to check 2 or 3 times a year just to make sure it's operating properly. The worst case scenario is that your battery will be charged from your engines. Now on this side here, there's called a regulator. I know you can't see it, but it's sitting on the side that actually charges when the engine's running, it will charge your battery. It's called a regulator. Now don't depend upon this, because this cannot charge with history with dealing with these trucks and building them. The way the people in the field work, they're just going to so many stops for short bursts of time that this engine itself cannot sustain the energy that it's needed to keep that battery up for 10-12 stops a day. This has to run at a high RPM for at least 30 minutes continually in order to put a hard charge back in that battery. It's a little hard concept to understand sometimes, but after a while you'll understand when you start watching the monitor and you pull this, and you'll see that you drain your battery considerably just starting your engine. So it's important to keep your truck running at all times and keep an eye on the voltage here to know where you are during the operations. I think that's it for the electrical system with this unit. Thank you for joining us for another episode of How It Works.